we're back. Welcome back to the Premier League prediction series. It is time for Game Week 2, and isn't it great to have club football back once again on our screens? We have got 10 fixtures, as always in the Premier League, always 10 fixtures, certainly this early on in the season, to discuss today. And before we get into it, a reminder to you guys that if you want to have your say on what you think is going to happen on each of the 10 Premier League fixtures this weekend, you can do so by joining the community page, link available in the top of your screen right now, where you can vote on how you think each of the 10 games are going to play out this weekend. And a reminder, if you haven't done so already, that if you want to take on me in my own prediction series, you can do so by joining my Super 6 mini league with the code available on your screen at the start of this video and throughout the rest of this video. And if you are listening via the podcast, then you will be able to join through the link available in the description on the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember, of course, to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. And without any further ado, let's have a look at what we are going to be expecting from Game Week 2 in the Premier League after we review how we got on last week, which you can see, again, if you are watching, that we only got 5 out of 10 Premier League results last weekend, but we did get one correct score. That was the Arsenal-Wolves result that was a 2-0 victory for Arsenal. But 5 out of 10 for the opening game week for me is a little bit disappointing, but it was a tough game week. And to be honest, looking at the fixtures this week, it's going to be a pretty tough game week this week as well. But I'm still going to hope to get more than 5 out of 10. Like I say, my target each week is going to be 7 out of 10. Means our season results so far for the Premier League, the Carabao Cup and the Community Shield is 28 out of 48 correct results with 5 correct scores. So still not a bad start to the season. But like I say, we've got a tough bunch of fixtures today. Then we've got the Carabao Cup second round coming for you at the start of next week. So it's going to get even harder when we get into there. But let's talk about the Premier League then. Starting off with the early kickoff on Saturday lunchtime, which is, of course, the Premier League leaders, Brighton and Hove Albion, taking on Manchester United. And I say league leaders with some emphasis because, unbelievably, after just one fixture of the season, second, third, fourth and fifth is the top 4 from last season: Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal and Aston Villa. So fair play to Brighton for being the one side to be above the last season's top 4. But taking on Manchester United, both sides did win their opening fixtures last week. I am obviously a Manchester United fan, and we did beat Brighton away last season. So I am a little bit optimistic going into this one, but I'm still a little bit pessimistic as well. It wasn't an unbelievable performance against Fulham for us. We played well, we created a lot of chances, but we failed to put the ball in net on a regular basis. Whereas Brighton created a lot of chances against Everton and arguably could have beaten them by more, especially after they went down to 10 men. And, well, I mean, he was offside. I was going to say they were unlucky not to score a fourth, but it was, of course, offside. I'm going to let my bias get the better of me on this one, which is potentially a mistake given how tough the rest of the fixtures are this weekend. But I am still going to go for 2-1 to Manchester United. I think if we keep creating the amount of chances we're creating, they're going to have to start going in eventually. Otherwise, what is a world-class striker in Ruud van Nistelrooy doing with this group of attacking players if we still can't find the net on a regular basis? You've got to look at the pre-season games against Liverpool and Arsenal. You've got to look at the Community Shield. And you've got to look at last week against Fulham and say, if we keep creating that many chances, we're going to start winning games more comfortably. And I think we will have the opportunity to create more chances against Brighton. And I think we're going to end up taking enough to get the win. That then takes us to the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and the first one of those is going to be Crystal Palace against West Ham. Two sides that both lost 2-1 last weekend, and again, this is probably the first of the really, really tough ones as well, because I honestly can see all 3 results being a very easy possibility here. Crystal Palace were, I think, incredibly unlucky not to beat Brentford, let alone actually lose to them. They had the better of the game. They obviously had the goal robbed by the referee for Eze's free kick. Then you look at West Ham, and you've got to say they were also unlucky not to get a result against Aston Villa. I wouldn't say they were unlucky to not win. I genuinely think Palace were unlucky to not win against Brentford, whereas I think West Ham were unlucky to lose the game against Aston Villa, and they missed some big chances in those last few minutes. I think it's going to be really hard to place this. I think the loss of Joachim Andersen is huge for Crystal Palace, and they've not replaced him going into this game. I think Gahey will still play in this one, but there's rumours they might be looking to accept the bid from Newcastle of 70 million today. If that bid is accepted today, then he won't be playing tomorrow either. And I think in that scenario, West Ham then become the favourites. But whilst Gahey is still available, whilst Anderson is the only loss, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Really, really tough to call that. And like I say, I think West Ham should be considered the favourites, but I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Next up, it's Fulham taking on Leicester. Leicester with that incredible 1-1 draw against Spurs in their opener on Monday night. Fulham with the 1-0 loss to Manchester United all the way back on Friday night. So Fulham have had an extra 3 days rest going into this one. I think defensively Fulham did look relatively good against Manchester United. Yes, we've already spoken about Manchester United did miss some big chances, but Fulham are good defensively, and especially at home, Fulham are very good defensively, and arguably Leicester were very lucky to get that 1-1 draw. The goal for Vardy, one of really only 2 chances Leicester had in the entire game, and Tottenham probably could have scored about 5 or 6 if they really had their shooting boots on. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Fulham. I think that is just about right in terms of this prediction. I think Leicester will struggle to score. I think Fulham won't create as many chances as Spurs, but they have enough creative players to cause problems. So I expect them to get the win, and I'm going for 1-0. From one promoted club to another promoted club, it is Ipswich Town travelling to the Etihad off the back of playing Liverpool in their opening game of the season. It couldn't get any harder for Ipswich, but on the flip side, at least they get those games out of the way early. For Manchester City, I just think this is going to be one of their classic steamroll games. I think Kieran McKenna will still try and impose his style of play on Manchester City, and I just don't think his players are ready for it. Yes, Ipswich have done some good business in the last couple of weeks. Man City could have Gundogan back. I don't think he'll be available in time for this game. If he is, I'm sure he'll only be on the bench. I can't see him starting after a limited pre-season. So I still think City are going to win this one. The question is by how many. I think Pep Guardiola is going to look to make a statement. I'm going to go for 5-0. Might be a bit harsh on Ipswich. May end up being only 2 or 3. But I could see this being one of those games where a newly promoted side is really underprepared for how good Manchester City actually are. I'm going to go for 5-0 to Manchester City. That then means that the third and final promoted club, Southampton at home to Nottingham Forest, is up next. And if the previous 2 results go the way I've predicted them, then there will still be no goals scored by any of the promoted sides going into this fixture, albeit it'll be being played at the same time as the other 2. But Southampton are taking on Nottingham Forest. Now, Southampton obviously losing 1-0 away to Newcastle with 10 men is a really shoddy start to the season. But, in my opinion, Nottingham Forest drawing 1-1 at home to Bournemouth is arguably an even more shoddy result, even though they still had 11 men. I think Newcastle are a very good team. They're a very well-organised team, and it was a poor Southampton mistake being the only reason Newcastle even scored their goal. But that is Southampton. They do take a lot of risks at the back. We spoke about it last week. They do concede a lot of goals despite having so much possession. But I think Nottingham Forest, after a poor start to their season, it's a good opportunity for Southampton to get the first points on the board for a newly promoted side, or I should say the first win from a newly promoted side. And Leicester did score against Tottenham last week, so ignore my comment about them not scoring already. But I'm going to go for a Southampton win. I'm going to go for 2-1. Apologies again for that Leicester comment. It is, for me, a 2-1 win for Southampton. Tough one to call, though. If this is a game that Forest win, Southampton are in humongous trouble already. Southampton have to be targeting games like this as the points that they're going to need to stay up this season. Fail to do it this early on in the season, it's a real long way back up the table from there. So I still think Southampton will get the result. But we'll see. I'm giving Forest a goal. They could end up getting more. Final game on terms of the 3 o'clock kickoffs. We are going to go for Tottenham taking on Everton. Everton, of course, bottom of the table after what was a very poor performance at home against, of course, Brighton and Hove Albion. Tottenham also going to be disappointed with that 1-1 draw against Leicester. But if you're going to make mistakes in the start of the season, you're going to make mistakes at any point in the season. In my opinion, better to make them now than towards the back end of the season. So I don't think they're going to be too disappointed with the 1-1 draw away at Leicester because they created so many chances, and the expectation will be that they will take more chances as and when they come in the next couple of weeks. And against the side that got absolutely obliterated at home last week, you've got to fancy Tottenham to do the job on Everton this time over. I'm going to go for 2-0 though. I'm going to be a little bit more cautious because, like I say, Spurs did miss an awful lot of chances against Leicester on Monday night. So I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to say 4 or 5-0 like I've done for Manchester City. But if Everton defend the way they did defend on Saturday last week, it could be another drumming for them. That then brings us to the 5:30 kickoff on Saturday, which is Aston Villa taking on Arsenal. A massive, massive fixture already in the title race, or at least the race for the Champions League places. 2 Champions League sides taking on each other in just game week 2 of the Premier League season. Both sides won their openers. Arsenal with a 2-0 win at home. Villa with a 2-1 win away. However, I think it was definitely Arsenal that had the better performance. Yes, Villa played very well against West Ham, but as we've already spoken about, I think West Ham are very unlucky not to get at least a point from that game. I think a point would have been about fair based on what I saw on the balance of the game. Villa weren't as impressive. I think Watkins was poor. I think bringing on John Duran was a great decision, and clearly because he got the winning goal. I'm not quite convinced that Villa are fully up to speed yet at the start of this season, whereas Arsenal, to me, looked really, really good outside of one good chance for Wolves that was well saved by Raya. So I'm going to give this one to Arsenal. I'm going to go 2-1 to them. Obviously, Aston Villa did beat Arsenal in both fixtures last season. I think it was 1-0 at home and then 2-0 at the Emirates. So definitely pedigree for Aston Villa here to get the result in this one. Arsenal will be looking for revenge, but more importantly, they will not want to hand the initiative to the other teams this early on. A lot of people are tipping Arsenal to win the Premier League this season. I'm not. I still think it'll be Manchester City. But you don't want to be playing catch-up to the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, and whoever else you think might be in this title race, potentially even Aston Villa, by losing a game against one of your potential rivals this early on in the season. So for me, Arsenal have to win this game, and I think Arsenal will win this game, and I'm going 4-2-1. That then brings us on to Sunday, and the first game on Sunday is AFC Bournemouth taking on Newcastle United. Bournemouth getting that late equaliser away at Forest to get a good 1-1 draw. Newcastle surviving the 10-men onslaught against Southampton to win 1-0 at home. Again, really tough one to call this. I'm really intrigued to see how Evan Nilsson performs his first game in England. I've seen him play for Porto a few times. I think he's a fantastic signing for Bournemouth. I think he's going to score goals. Will he score in his opening game? Let me know in the comment section below. Will it be enough to get a result against Newcastle? I'm going to say no, because I'm going to go for 2-1 to the away side once again. The third time I've gone for a 2-1 away win on this video already, but I think Newcastle will come out on top. If they're beating a side with 10 men, you'd expect them to beat a side with the greatest of respects to Bournemouth, a side like Bournemouth with 11 men. Obviously, they could always have someone sent off again. Yes, they do have a little bit of a defensive crisis at the moment, but that's why I've given Bournemouth a goal. If Cher hadn't have been sent off, I'd have done 2-0 for this. So I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to give Bournemouth a chance in this game, but I still think this is Newcastle's game to lose, and I'm going to go for 2-1 to them. On to the other early kickoff on Sunday. It is Wolves taking on Chelsea. And the big news after last night's game in the Europa Conference League qualifying first leg is that Cole Palmer could be out with a hamstring injury. And that is only a report that's come out this morning. It's unclear at this point in time whether or not he is going to play against Wolves. If only Chelsea had a vast number of players available if Cole Palmer was injured. But I can't think of any. They've not really signed many players this summer or last winter or whatever. So there could be a real problem if Cole Palmer is injured. Obviously, Pedro Neto returning to Wolves this early on is going to be the story of this fixture. For me, still a tough one to call, but I'm going to go for 2-0 to Chelsea. I don't think Wolves are going to offer too much threat. Like I said, they only had one major chance against Arsenal, which was well saved by Raya, but they weren't amazing, and I think with the quality that Chelsea have got, they should be beating teams like Wolves. Yes, it's only the second game for Maresca in the Premier League, and he's still trying to figure out the best style of play, but they certainly had their moments against City. I thought Lavia was fantastic. I think they were creating decent opportunities. It's just, I don't rate Nicholas Jackson up front. I did kind of like the look of Gui or Gua, whatever you say his name, the Brazilian striker up front, but He may have missed an open goal last night as well, so it might be another Nicholas Jackson job for him up there. But ultimately, I expect Chelsea to be beating Wolves, and I'm going to go for 2-0, which then means that the main event slot for this week sees Liverpool taking on Brentford in the final game of Game Week 2. Will Ivan Toney play for Brentford? That is the question. Will he ever play for Brentford again? That's a whole nother question. But is he going to start against Liverpool? Thomas Frank is being a bit coy about it. Liverpool, for me, should, and to be honest, have to win this game. Like I said, you don't want to be allowing impetus to the other side if you are believing that you're in a title race already this season. You can't afford to lose games at home to Brentford. I don't expect Liverpool to drop points at home to Brentford. I'm going to go for 3-1. I thought Brentford did take their chances very well against Crystal Palace, albeit I don't think they deserved to get anything against Crystal Palace. And Liverpool were far too good for Ipswich, and I'd expect them to be far too good for Brentford. So I think 3-1 is just about right. And that will do it for today's video. Like I said already, don't forget to check out our community page where you can vote for every single one of these fixtures, how you think they are going to play out. And let me know all of your thoughts as well down in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching as always. Thank you very much for listening if you have been partaking in this through the podcast medium. I will be back on Tuesday or Monday, depending on... No, it will be Tuesday. I'm away this weekend. So I'll be back on Tuesday morning for my Carabao Cup Round 2 predictions. I will try and get some sort of reaction to the Brighton-Manchester United game out as and when I can, but I am away all weekend this weekend, so I'm not going to be able to have an immediate reaction to Brighton-Manchester United. I will try and get something out for you at some point. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you very soon.